G'day, and welcome back to Australian Guy Films. I'm Pitbull Nut, and of course, you know my trusty companion Chili. So here we are down at Crissy Fields. It's been an extremely hot couple of days in San Francisco, and so Chili's been begging me to go for a swim. So whenever possible, I pull up down by Crissy Fields and let Chili go wild. So this is Chili going wild. He's not exactly the most active dog, although he never stops. He goes in the water and he walks from one end of the beach to the other and back again and back again and back again. He never causes trouble with the other dogs. He always goes up and greets them politely and offers them a sniff and then takes a sniff and moves along. Quite often he doesn't even stop and interrupt whatever they're doing. He's always happy to say hi to the people. He's certainly a people's dog. He's just a big ball of fluff who loves to go up and say hi to people and lean on them. But whenever he's at the water, given an opportunity, he always goes in. His thing is to just walk up into the water up to his chest and just wander along the beach and have a look.
I wonder how many balls the dogs lost interest in and just went straight back to China.
Right? I'm sure. I know we've lost that.
And then I could see the headlines tomorrow: man drowns while saving dog's ball.
So one of the really nice things about Crissy Fields is it is an off-leash dog area, or at least it seems to be, because most dogs are off-leash. And there's always something to see. These kite surfers are kind of amazing. They get up on the foil really easily and then they very much glide. If they didn't have to get wet when they were getting in, I wonder if they could stay dry the entire time they were out there. But anyway, this video is about Chili, and I'm just going to use some of the time in this video to explain a little bit about what Chili and I are up to. And very shortly, Chili and I are about to go on an adventure. I've traveled a lot over the last number of years. The last 23 odd years, I've been in something like 44 countries. And most of it was by myself, but in the last 15 years, Chili's been with me almost the entire time, and he's never been a problem when we've been traveling. He is such a gentle, kind dog. He makes friends wherever we go, and he is a pleasure to travel with. He never chases things or barks or causes any problems with the people or the local animals. One of the reasons I believe is because he's never had an area of his own where he could piss on each tree every time and claim that as his own. So he's always been a very respectful dog when it comes to entering another dog's area. Now in the next week or two, he'll be visiting the vet. He'll be getting all of his vaccinations updated. He's a fully vaccinated dog already, but because I intend to take him in places that there may be things that he's not going to have contact with here, I do want to protect him at all costs in all ways possible, so he will be getting a full range of vaccinations for anything that we could expect a dog to come across in pretty much anywhere we're likely to go. He also has to get a vet check for international travel, and that's pretty basic. He's had a number of those before. We've traveled internationally a number of times, and unfortunately it's kind of a waste of money. The airlines and the transport companies require it mostly because it's written into the rules and regulations for customs and immigration. But it turns out when you get to the customs and immigration desk, there's only one time in about 6 border crossings that anyone's ever actually asked to see the paperwork for Chili. Usually they get down on all fours with him and give him a pat and give him a hug and talk about their dogs and their old dogs and the dogs that have died and the dogs they have and the dogs they wish they had. But very rarely do they actually follow the rules to the letter and ask me for all of the paperwork with Chili. However, I do keep it with me, just in case they ask, because the biggest nightmare with travel would be that they reject Chili, or they accept Chili and reject me. But either way, if Chili and I get split up, it would be a big drama, so I'll do everything I can to avoid that at all costs. So he is getting a little older, but so am I. I had a scooter accident a couple of months ago where I cracked my ankle, we believe. I never actually had it x-rayed. But again, yesterday when we were doing this walk in the soft sand, I seem to have aggravated that, and I'm back into my restrictive splint again. So I don't know how long I'm going to be kind of immobile. It was only a few days last time, but this time it feels a little more painful, so we'll see. It's not going to stop us, it's just going to slow us down a little bit. I usually walk very slowly and with purpose anyway, so it's really not a big problem for me. When the wind kicks up here, these guys really go crazy. They do go outside the Golden Gate Bridge. They go down past Alcatraz in the city, and they zoom from one side of the bay across to the other, really quite amazingly fast. The only surprising thing about this is the age of the people that I saw doing it. Instead of being the young 20-somethings or the teens or the thrill seekers, most of the guys that I saw doing this were actually a little older, perhaps somewhere around my age, around 30s, 40s and 50s, and sometimes beyond. Of course you can't see it when they're out there because they all look hip, young and funky when they're riding these things, and quite inspirational to see these guys out there. I spoke to Scott yesterday, the guy that's buying the van from me, and he reconfirmed that he is still planning on doing it, and we should be looking at hitting the road somewhere around Friday or the weekend. Now the reason I'm doing the trip with him is because he needs someone to help with the driving and some company while he drives across, but also, maybe most importantly, is because to leave this country there's only really 4 directions to go. If I go to Mexico, I can walk. If I go to Canada, I can do the same thing. But I'd actually rather this time go a little further. And Asia is a 15-hour direct flight away, which is a little bit too long for Chile. And the Europe side across the Atlantic Ocean is only around a 6-hour flight. So for Chile's benefit, a flight to Europe is so much more beneficial. This little foo-foo dog was not designed for the beach. But Chile was not designed to fly either, so we're going to make the flight as short as possible. And a road trip across this continent gives me a chance to seal off one more piece of the world where I've actually traveled across land rather than fly. And then I hope to fly into somewhere perhaps like Madrid, which will be very close to Gibraltar, which I haven't visited. And also then there's ferries just jumping across the Gibraltar Straits, and then I'm in Morocco in North Africa, and I've never actually been to Morocco before. Morocco and Spain are very easy to travel to with Chile. From there, I'm not quite sure which direction I'll go. Depending on what I find on the ground, I'm actually leaning towards perhaps a trip across North Africa into Egypt and then back down into the Middle East. I've been before through the Middle East. It was actually fantastic. It's not at all like what you'd expect after watching the news. The people there are kind of fantastic, very hospitable, and it's an amazing part of the world if you ever get a chance to visit. This dog also I don't think was designed too much for the beach. But anyway, Chile and I are off on our little walkabout adventure. I believe it's going to be something kind of fun and special, and because he's not such a hugely active dog, it's not that hard to keep control of. In fact, Chile works pretty well without the leash. If I take the collar off Chile, then it changes a little bit because he kind of knows he can pretty much do anything he likes. Like on this walk down the beach, Chile's leading. I have to give him very few commands. He turns around and has a look at me every 20 or 30 seconds just to make sure I'm following him. If I'm not, then he has a look around tries to figure out where I am and comes pretty much straight over to me. That's something we've worked on for years. We had to test each other's stamina with stubbornness, and it turns out I can be a little bit more stubborn than Chili. So when he was young, I'd call him, get his attention, give him a hand signal, and then I wouldn't move until he came to me. And eventually he realized I really was not going to move until he came to me. And as he got older and older, he's realized that I'm still not going to move until he comes to me, so it's just easier to come over to me when I call. He's also been socialized with other dogs since he was a puppy, and it's also important because the ability for him to walk past a group of dogs or a pack of dogs like this without showing any real interest, even when they come up to him, he's not too bothered by it. This is going to be very important when we travel, and not every dog, I believe, is suited to that. Even when Chili goes over and mingles with a pack of dogs that he's never met before, he doesn't seem to have any threatening behavior, and therefore they just accept him for what he is, a big ball of fluff. For Chili, it seems more important to go up and meet the people than to meet the dogs. But he also understands sometimes you have to get through the dogs to get to the dog people. And he does both of those really nicely. So in most countries, dogs are quite acceptable. In fact, I don't think I've been to a country where people don't have dogs, and therefore Chili's going to make a whole bunch of opportunities open up for me that I've never had before. I've met plenty of people over the years who have taken their dogs traveling with them, and I've always really kind of been jealous that they took their dogs, and the local dogs have been fun, but never the same as having your own dog. So I'm hoping, I'm pretty much sure that when we get to wherever we go and wherever we go from there, Chili's going to open up a whole bunch of doors that are going to be really fun to go and play with. Like these guys were really cute. I don't like using a leash because of this exact problem. It tends to tangle people up, and especially if I go out in public and we're sitting down to eat, I don't like a leash because Chili's big enough that if I'm hanging on to one end and Chili's hanging on to the other end, it makes a fine trip rope. With plastic tables in chairs in a lot of cafes nowadays, Chili's actually big enough to bring a whole table full of food and drinks down onto the ground, which is never a great way to be when you're in a restaurant. The destroyer of everything. But Chili's not really like that. He's more gentle and relaxed. He's happy to sit at my feet and just wait and see what happens, because for a dog like Chili, everything seems to happen really positive. Like I said earlier, he's 15 years old. I've had him since about middle of May 2004, I believe it is. I get a letter from the vet every year saying that he should come in for his annual checkup, and for a number of years I've been getting a letter saying he needs to come in for a senior's checkup. Most people, when they meet him, thinks he's between around 6 to 9 years old. His eyes are clear. His teeth are getting on a bit because he's a bit of a bone chewer when he's given the opportunity, but he's still got his smile, the sparkle in his eye, the spring in his walk, and he definitely still has the wag in his tail. He's one of the best couple of dogs I've ever had. There's a secret reason why one dog was better, but we won't go into that. She was a golden cocker spaniel called Buddy, and she was so trusting she used to come scuba diving with me. But Chili is an amazing dog. He's been the easiest dog I've ever had to teach tricks to. He gets fed about a cup of stew meat every day. I never put it in a bowl or a plate. I always cut it into smaller pieces and hand feed it to him. And this is the time where he learns patience, he learns tricks, and he learns who it is that gives him the really good food. I always have dog food on the floor for him, but he rarely eats it. He's had kibble in his bowl here for 3 days and he's barely taken 2 bites. But anyway, that's the end of the video for today. Just a quick look at Chili and a bit of a chat about taking Chili on holidays with me. If you like this video, if you've watched it for this long, you obviously like it, so please hit that like button. If you haven't already, subscribe and click on the bell and you'll get updates of any videos that Chili and I put online during our walkabout.